Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and Rochelle is going to be joining us shortly. And but I also wanted to let everybody know that this is going to be on the Brushwood Media Network, and it's all over the place. So you can always go to positivetalkradio.net and to get the latest episodes, as well as this is going out live to YouTube and various places. We've got a great show for you today. We've got a gentleman who is working because of his personal story. He is working with grief and how to get around grief and to get through it. And his name is David Brinker, and he is right here, right now. David, how are you?
Kevin, good to be with you. And how are you today?
I'm always awesome. It's a rule. I've got to be awesome all the time. And
well, let's put that in a bottle and see if we can give it away.
Well, that's what I'm working to do every day on the show.
Yeah, good. Let's see if we can come up with another dose of good.
That's the whole idea. And I wanted to have you on because, you know, there are lots of things in life that we face, and dealing with loss and grief. And it doesn't have to be the loss of an individual. It can be the loss of a job. It can be, I had grief with the loss of my favorite dog. Yeah, it can be the loss of a car. If you get into an accident, it can be, you can have grief over a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, a lot of people don't know how to handle it. And many people don't know how to get out of it when they get into it. And that's one of the things that you've suffered significant grief in your life, and which led you on a path to try and help other people to get through it. And so we're going to talk about that today, if that's okay with you.
Excuse me. Yes, sure enough.
And so tell us your story a little bit.
Well, I'm not unique in that I have found, and I believe that everybody experiences loss in life. And so, as a human being, I experience that too. And most of us, if we begin to think about our past, can recall losses that occurred very early on in life. And that was true for me too. You know, a pet dog and having to move and saying goodbye to friends. And, those first times we had a puppy love and somebody rejected us. They're all losses. And the thing about loss is that it builds up. It tends to be cumulative. It tends to hang around unless we know how to resolve it. Most of us have learned so many, many things, but most of us have not really learned a way that helps us recover from the emotional pain of our loss or our griefs. Yeah, that's a place to start. But maybe you'd like to go somewhere else.
No, that what I'd like to do. Let me tell you a brief story real quick. There's a gal. Her name is Dana, and she's been on the show many, many times, and she acted as a co-host at one point. Well, last April, her boyfriend or fiance's son and his wife came on the show.
Yeah.
He was 21, and he had stage 4 cancer. And he came on the show, and we talked, and his brand new wife was there with us and stuff. And well, subsequently, he's passed because from the cancer, and that happened relatively recently. And I reached out to Dana and stuff, but she's going through, because you don't ever expect Dogs they have a life of 10 or 15 years, and that going in. But children, especially when they're your children and they pass away,
Mm-hmm.
that's not how it's supposed to work.
No, it's not the way we expect it'll be. No, you're right.
And so her sadness and grief, they've got, five he had 5 brothers and sisters, and she's got 4 boys, and so the children has been a big deal in their life. And so, the grief has been overwhelming for
Mm-hmm.
that entire family, and it's
Mm-hmm.
large, and
Oh
they've
yeah,
got lots of uncles and aunts and cousins and stuff, and everybody is suffering from that. And so that just really brought it home to me that it
yeah.
is, and it's a universal concept of.
It is. Yeah, it's in every culture. It's in every faith group or people who have no active faith practice. But grief is universally human. Yes, that's right.
And I know another gal that her mom and dad died 20 years ago, and she is still referencing that as a
Hmm.
grief point in her life that is
That's right.
continuing now.
Yeah, yeah. Some people can find ways to heal their heart, but as I don't want to be a broken record, but as I said, most of us haven't really learned an effective way, skills, or the word that I use is a method um, to recover and to really enter back into life without the burden of the pain. So many people, when they think about a loved one or a situation where they wish they had more, or they wish something was better or something was different, they're when they recall it, they're stuck with the pain, and it's sort of a mixed bag because they can't forget the person they love. They don't want to, but to think of the person and to always encounter the heartfelt pain is debilitating. And so my approach is to try to help people who are in that kind of situation find relief. And I use the word recovery.
Well, I think recovery is a good word for it because it really is something that can be overwhelming to the point where I'm told, I don't know anybody personally, but I'm told that there are people who suffer such profound grief that they have trouble getting out of bed and functioning
Mhm. Oh yeah.
on a normal level every
Oh
day.
yeah. Yeah. There have been studies that have shown the economic cost of grief to, let's just say, to any country, but let's just say America. The economic cost in terms of to the employer, missed work, calling off sick, the economic cost of when we can't resolve our grief. Grief continues to be in us until it's resolved, and it tends to show up in unwanted, surprising, unexpected, usually destructive ways. Now, I'm not going to paint with a big brush and say that all um, eating disorders are caused by grief. That I can't say, and I wouldn't want to say that. But there are some things where people who are involved with the abuse of drug or the abuse of food or the abuse of alcohol or abusive relationships or self-destructive behavior, if we looked at it underneath layers of stuff, there is unresolved emotional pain from some kind of profound loss. And it may be different kinds of losses, but usually loss is down there and it's affecting human lives negatively until they can recover from it. And it's not just an emotional, painful journey, it's an economic cost to families, um, to businesses, to the economy. Um, so it's a big problem, but it's not talked about.
Nobody, well, and a lot of people will say, well, I know he's gone now, but you've got to get over it. And
Hmm.
and that doesn't work for some people. If you say, buck up, buttercup,
No,
and you got to get over it because
no,
it's just one of those things.
no,
And that doesn't work for people
no.
to a great. So it's important to have a plan.
Yeah.
and a program that you can
Yeah.
utilize to get
So
through.
I'd like to, pardon me, I don't want to cut you off.
That's okay.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so I'd like to piggyback on that. Um, one of the things, pardon me for that, I'm so sorry. One of the things that I found is that people who are grieving, who have had profound loss, they don't need intellectual information. They need to heal their heart. The problem is not with their brain or with their thought. They don't need new facts. What they need is a way to discover what is hurting in their heart, to name it, to express it, and to deliver it, to have it be heard. Most people who are grieving don't really need to, they don't feel that they need new information, and they don't need somebody to come along and try to fix them with advice. What they need is to feel that they have been heard, that they have been heard with empathy and understanding from another compassionate human being. And most of what we get, if we expose that I'm grieving, if we expose my story of grief, is we get advice. And usually that's not what we need. And so it tends to create distance between ourselves and others who mean well, who probably love us and are trying to help us, but they don't know how. And it just doesn't feel good to get the wrong kind of treatment when what we need is a healing of the heart, and all we're getting is kind of half-baked advice. And so we distance ourselves, and that just compounds the problem.
Well, we don't know many. Well, I think most of us, it's a very uncomfortable situation when you say, "How are you doing today?" "I'm not doing very well." "Well,
Yeah.
why?" My cousin died, or my uncle died, or my
Hmm.
dad died."
Hmm.
And then we don't know how to follow up with that with,
That's right. We want to
"Oh,
avoid it. Yeah, we want to avoid it. Yeah, and when people say silly things or unhelpful things back to us, we want to avoid experiencing that again and again. Yeah, it's a circular problem that compounds itself, and that's why I think that the grief recovery method, which is the approach that I use, it's not original with me, but it is one that I use. It's the one that I use. I'm excited about it. I mean, it's sort of a strange thing to say I'm excited about grief, but more specifically, I'm excited about offering a tool that actually has been proven to help people. That's that's pretty amazing.
well," and that is what we're here to talk about today because of the ongoing and insidious nature of grief in some cases. Now, in other cases, not so much, but
Yeah.
there are people who are deeply feel deeply about the loss that they've attained or that they're feeling for an individual.
Hmm.
That it even goes way past. Well, I'll give you an example. A lot of people, are around when somebody passes away, as an example. People are around for the first couple of weeks, then they may bring a casserole, they
Oh
may
yeah.
check with you to make sure that you're okay. But what a lot of people don't do is when the first anniversaries come around, the
Hmm.
first Christmas, the first Thanksgiving, the first birthday, the first death day, we tend to not treat those as importantly as we probably should because that individual is still feeling the grief. Is that true?
That's true. And well, it's true in general. I want to say that, but I also want to recognize that we all are unique individuals, and our relationship with the thing that we lost, like a pet, or our relationship to a loved one that we lost, or our relationship to an idea that we had hoped for, and now it is lost. Like maybe we hoped for uh, a better future economically, and we lost our job. You see, it could be that. We all grieve in our own unique way because we all have a unique relationship to the thing that we lost. So I may grieve my dog profoundly, the next person may not. And so we don't compare the intensity or the significance of grief that a person feels, nor do we evaluate it and put it on a scale and say we shouldn't feel that much grief for a parakeet. that's only appropriate for a spouse. That we never do that, because we all grieve uniquely and individually, and the intensity is unique and individual.
Well, and I know that you suffered this loss as well. One of the most profound grief moments I have ever had was when I had to put my favorite dog down because he had
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was then my fault because I had to put him down. And that was all. That was an awful experience. By the way, we're talking with David Brinker. We're talking about a grief and a recovery process that he
Yes,
has become adept in because of the profound amounts of grief that he's sustained in his life, which motivated him to do this. And David, I'm glad you did. We need to take a quick break. And when we
sure.
come back, we're going to talk about the recovery process that you're working with and how it all works.
Okay,
So
I'll be here.
I knew you would be. And so we'll be right back. And it's just a minute. Don't worry. We'll just be right back. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And we've got a great guest for you today. His name is David Brinker. He's got a recovery process for grief that he has. And if I can tell the story for you, you suffered significant amounts of grief and went on a search to try and find something that could help you get through all of the grief. Am I correct so far?
Yeah, that's the outline of it. Sure.
And you discovered this process and this program and this method, and so you decided, it worked for me, it can work for others, and so you took the attitude that you were going to learn all about it and to take care of yourself and it, right?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say there's a little bit more to it than that. I was working in a nursing home and was responsible for additional programs to help the residents. It was a continuing care retirement community. And someone came to me and said, "Do we have a grief support group?" And we didn't. So I began to look into that. And I found this one called the Grief Recovery Method, which has been around now for 40 years. And it is um, uh, the Grief Recovery Institute provides training for individuals to become proficient in offering or delivering this approach to others. So I evaluated what that program had to offer compared with others, and it was just head and shoulders above the rest. And one of the reasons was it has been studied by Kent State University for quite a number of years, and it has actually been proven through the social science study department to be effective. And I thought, wow, in fact, it's the only grief program that has that credential behind it. And I thought, well, this is more than just people sitting in a room, sharing from their heart whatever they wanted to say. This has an intention and an outcome and a track record. So I went and got the training. In fact, I've now received the advanced level of training, so I can offer this program in person and also online, which now gives me actually the ability to offer it to anybody around the world.
Well, and I want to thank you for working in a care facility. I don't think I could do it because I know that you get close to the residents and the people that you resonate with and stuff, and then they're at the end of their life or near the end of their life, and then they pass away. That's got to be really hard.
Well, I think it depends on your worldview, and we could talk about that, but I think those are sort of secondary issues, and I found it very enriching and fulfilling and a wonderful, positive experience. Yeah, it really was.
Well, good. I'm glad that worked for you, because I have too much empathy and I get too close to people, and then they go away and then they pass away, and that would be really hard for me.
Yeah.
And speaking of really hard for me, we get to have Rochelle join the program right now. Hey, kiddo, how you doing?
I'm okay. I'm struggling with this sickness, but I am pushing through it. And how are you, David? It's so nice to see you again.
Why, hello, Rochelle. I'm sorry to hear you're not well.
Oh, that's okay. We all go through it, but I think of it positively because if my body is going through a new virus, then it won't get it again. So,
I hope that's true for you. Yeah.
And she said that earlier today that she looks much better than she feels, which is, I'm so sorry about that.
yes, it's okay. We're getting through it. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be in the conversation. And thank you for being patient with me.
Mhm.
Always, always. And Rochelle, we're talking about grief, and we're
Mhm.
talking about David's work with his grief recovery program and stuff. So, David, tell us a little bit more about the program, if you would.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, I think, you've used the phrase that I went through significant grief and loss. I think I've just lived a normal life. And the grief recovery program has allowed me to see and identify the extent of loss and grief that has happened in my life that I really didn't identify before, even though it had affected me. I tended to ignore it and bury it and do other kinds of things. But I think I'm more in the norm than having had, significant losses or traumatic losses. Um, so because I got the certification, which I mentioned, part of that is you have to go through the program yourself. And so I went through it and I found it to be effective. It worked. And so some things that used to tangle me up emotionally, I was untangled from. Some things where I had, lost certain people that I loved, and I had regrets and all those sort of things. I found that I was free of them again. That I was able to recover. Part of what we mean by recovery is not just be stuck in the pain, but I was able to recover more and more positive memories of the positive contributions from that person in my life. Um, and so part of it, what it means to be a grief recovery specialist is to be trained and certified and licensed by the Institute. But further, it means that you are on a journey of continuing to work on your own um, losses and grief. So that would lead me into a brief explanation of the grief recovery method. Um, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a counselor, and the grief recovery method program is not therapy. I'm not a licensed counselor or a psychotherapist, and if somebody needs that, I cannot help them in those ways. But
Right.
the grief recovery method is more aligned with coaching, I would say, or even education, in that if somebody engages me and we work through the program for 8 weeks, I will take them step by step through a process and I will teach them different aspects about grief. We start for 4 weeks, we talk about things that don't work. You mentioned them, some of them already, but we talk about things that don't work in terms of resolving the pain of grief. And these are cumulative steps. And so we build a foundation of common phrases and knowledge and assumptions, and we build on that until we get into the second phase of the program where we're actually taking recovery steps. And one of the recovery steps is to take an inventory of your loss and your grief. We call it the grief history chart.
Mhm.
And so over the span of your whole life, you identify all the significant losses you've had. The next step is you then you pick one relationship out of that history and you choose you're going to work on one experience of loss or grief.
Mm.
And you then create a relationship graph, all the ups and downs of that relationship, your experience with that person or that place of employment or that neighborhood, whatever it might be, or that pet. And then
Mm.
we take what we call recovery components and we attach, there's three main ones, or possibly fourth one, but you attach to every event in your relationship a recovery component. These are action steps. And then the next step is you begin to put out in writing how we convert the recovery action step into a statement of emotional truth. The one thing we require of everybody that participates is emotional honesty. It's not about political correctness or what anybody else thinks should be your emotion, but if it was a true emotion, we ask you to be honest about it. And so,
Right.
whatever emotion you had in relationship to those events with that person that had to do with loss, we begin to uncover, we begin to name, and we refine the emotions that were found in that event. Usually, when we have loss, there's an emotional part to that loss that still lives within us. That's why most people feel stuck with their loss and their grief. That's why they find this helpful. And so, once they are able to express and discover and name the emotions, we finally move to a final phase where we put all of this in a letter to the person. And so
Mm.
we address that person and we talk about when certain things happen, whatever the event was of loss. And we talk about what was felt, the emotional honesty that that person felt. And then the grief recovery personnel, the setting provides a safe environment that people hear, they're empathetically receive, and they hear what is said without judgment, without criticism, without comment, and without comparison. And that goes
Mm.
back to providing what I said at the beginning, that people don't really need to be fixed. They need more
Mm.
than anything else, they need to have their emotions heard. Now,
Mm.
one of my challenges was I grew up, I think, being, I'll call it emotionally challenged or undeveloped, underdeveloped. So as a person growing up, emotions were not particularly welcomed in situations, and they were met with pushback when they were expressed. So I was not highly skilled in that. And so I have had to learn, what is it that I'm actually feeling? What's the name of it? I knew I was feeling something, but I struggled to name it. The grief recovery method has given me the tools. So all of these steps that I teach a client are tools that they put into practical use step by step. And after 8 weeks, a client has those tools for the rest of their life. And they can apply them to any situation that has significant emotion to it, any
Mhm.
situation of loss, any situation where they feel they're feeling something and they're not being listened to. They know what to do. They know how to not bottle that up uh,
Right.
in their heart.
Right. Well, that is, I mean, there's so many aspects of grief, and I love how you break it down and give it a name. I want to kind of go into that and talk about what exactly that looks like. And I mean, there's so many kinds of grief. There's so many different ways that we handle it. And I don't think there is a right or a wrong way at all because it all comes down to somebody hurting. And I love how you say that they just need to be heard. Because a lot of times I think when we look within ourselves, we don't give ourselves that. Like, I hear you and I acknowledge that, but we do it for everybody else. So I think you teaching this to people is so extremely powerful and helping them not only get through their grief, but to deeply more understand themselves, be connected, and just have a deeper understanding of life. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I would like to talk to you more about um, where you see people struggle the most in those steps as they go along their journey. So stay with us, everybody. We are talking with David Brinker here, working with people to get through challenging times like grief, which we all experience at least once, right? So
More
stay
than
with us.
once.
And yeah,
More than once.
yeah, and I love how you say it. Really, it's just life. It's this is something I think everybody could learn that would help them just get through it a little easier. So stay with us and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for a powerful way to grow your brand while making a real difference? Well, Positive Talk is the perfect platform to align your message with inspiration, hope, and meaningful conversations. By sponsoring Positive Talk, your brand will reach an engaged audience that values positivity and connection. People who want to support companies that share their values. Take this opportunity to showcase your business in a space that uplifts, inspires, and creates lasting impact. Don't wait. Email me, Kevin at kmmedia.pro today to learn how you can partner with us and spread positivity while growing your brand.
And welcome back, everybody. I am not as cool as Kevin, so I haven't figured out how to put all the music and adjust all the things. So we'll get there. Stay patient with me. But today we are talking with David Brinker about the steps of recovery through grief. And it is quite the process. I'm pretty sure you've seen that with many people. There's maybe a time frame that is a little longer and a little shorter for people. But my question for you is tell me a little bit more about where you see people have either struggles or the biggest breakthroughs in those steps.
Yeah. Well, what I would one comment I'd like to make is that grief does not follow a timeline. And I mentioned
Correct.
it with Kevin that we're all unique and our grief is unique as well. So there's not a timeline that everybody follows, nor are there exact distinct stages that people follow. Those things tend to not be terribly helpful in helping people move out of their pain, their heartache. Um, so in terms of the grief recovery method, um, the first four steps or 4 weeks when we meet, we're kind of establishing a common ground and a common understanding, and those go usually pretty well, and people are excited and they're engaged and they're happy that they're getting help.
Yeah.
But then the next four stages, the next 4 weeks or steps, really involve personal heart reflection, being emotionally honest about my own life, my own story. And that's where some people begin to have resistance. And the resistance comes in the form of, well, this part of my life has been so painful. It hurts to think about it, it hurts to remember it. I don't want to feel the pain, so I don't want to remember it.
Yeah.
But what I help people understand is that we have had an emotional connection with either the pet we lost or the loved one we lost or the hopes, dreams, and expectations that we feel we lost. We had emotional connections to all of those things. And once we have lost them, we don't, the emotions tend to continue when we remember. They're part of that relationship, but we don't know what to do with the emotions anymore. The loved one
Right.
is gone, the pet has died. I still have these emotions about those things I've loved, but what do I do with them?
Yeah.
And that turns into pain, and the pain turns into avoidance, or it turns into destructive things. And so I show them how, if we can name the emotions, we can take the energy out of them.
Okay.
Emotions have an energy. If you're
Yeah.
scared, you might feel that fight or flight, or if you feel threatened, you might feel something in your stomach, or if you're challenged and you feel inadequate, you might feel sick to your stomach. You might be in certain situations where your legs shake. All of these are very common, simple illustrations that emotions hold. Go along with emotions, there is an energy that is held in our body. And if we can release the energy instead of
Mhm.
bottling it up, that's the path to recovery. And so when people say it's too painful to look at, what they're really doing is keeping the cork in the bottle. That's
Yeah.
all they're doing.
Shaking it up maybe even a little.
Yeah, well, yeah, it just the
Okay.
question is, I usually say, "Well, have you ever done that before?" And they
Mm.
say, "Oh, yeah, I've been doing it for 30
All
years." I
the
say, "Well,
time.
how well has that worked?" And then they admit, "Well, I'm still feeling the pain of the grief." I said, "Well, let's try something different. Let's just try it."
Well, you mentioned putting a name on those emotions and those things. Can you break that down? Like, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, there are it's very easy to find on the internet, charts that give explicit lists of emotional names. So a very simple list is mad, bad, sad, or had.
Oh, okay,
Somebody
that's
feels
one name.
sad, somebody feels I've been bad, or I'm glad, or somebody has abused me, so I've been had. It's just a really simple list. But there are lists that go deeper and deeper into the naming of emotions. And so I help, the process gives helps people find the honest emotional name for them. I never tell them what they feel. In
Right.
fact, I promise them that I will never tell them what they should feel, but I give them tools to help them uncover and name what is emotionally honest for them. And sometimes it's for some people, it's the first time in their life they've ever done this. They
Yeah.
have pain associated with a loss, and because we're pain avoidant, we just try to stay away from it instead of
Mm.
spending the time to try to say, what is the name of this emotion?
Yeah. Well,
And
and
so,
do you ever notice when has somebody ever come to you in a situation where they said, "Hey, I noticed that I've acknowledged this pain, I've given it a name, and now that I've gone through the process of allowing myself to accept it to be there, maybe any pain physically they were feeling, they no longer also felt."
the process does not inquire about people's um, what I would call medical or bodily health. So I don't know those things. There have
Right.
been people who have occasionally um, voiced that. And so what I most often hear, um, let me back up. So when somebody goes through the method, some people find immediate recovery, immediate relief, and you can
Right.
see it on their face. For other people, it's a little bit more gradual. Maybe a month later, they'll call me up and they say, "I can't believe how well I'm sleeping,
Oh,
and I don't know why." And I say, "Well, could it
yeah.
be that some of the grief recovery process is taking hold, and you're not burdened by all the turmoil of that emotional pain?" Oh yeah, it could be that. I think maybe it is. So it's anecdotal, um,
Right.
but I told Kevin that Kent State University has studied this method for years, and it
Mhm.
has been proven to be effective. In other words, it works. It
Mhm.
works in varying degrees different with people in some different ways. So it's not predictive that I can say, oh, if you do this, you're going to sleep better. But
Right.
I had a situation where a woman her husband had died very suddenly, sudden death, young age, in her arms. And she was not able to resuscitate him. And the ambulance came and he was already dead, deceased. And she felt very much, she blamed herself for that. And she was profoundly stuck in guilt and blame, and that the only way she could express that was that I'm stuck in the grief for my husband. So we went through the method, and in a month there was improvement. I saw her last week. So now we're about a year out, and physically her face is bright, she's smiling, and the indicative thing for me is she's now found ways that she wants to re-engage life. And that's what we mean by recovery. It does not mean forgetting the loved one. It doesn't mean she will never remember her husband and feel a sadness. She
Of
will,
course.
but she's not caught in the pain. The pain is
Mm.
not predominating and controlling her life and her choices. She's now
Mm.
freely choosing to embrace life.
Well, that was
So,
beautiful,
yeah,
and it goes into my next question. Really,
yeah.
um, it's after the process, because you go through it and you see people before, you see them after. Share a little bit with me about what it's like to see people come out of the other side.
Well, some people I re-encounter. Some people go through the 8-week process, and
Hmm.
they will, in the evaluation phase, they'll tell me that they have found it helpful and beneficial. But there's some people that's the last I see them. So I don't have um, recovery stories for everyone.
Right.
But um, let me pause and say this. I don't want to say that it is magic and it will that I can automatically promise positive
Right.
results. I've had 2 people who engaged me to lead them through the process, and essentially they resisted doing what I call the heart work, the work of looking at themselves, looking at their losses, and doing the work of naming what they felt when they experienced that in the past. They absolutely dug in their heels and said, um, either I don't remember, which I'm not sure that was honest, or they
Hmm.
said, that's over and I don't need to look at it. And so they finished the program and had very, very little change in their life. But it was because in other words, if you heard the phrase, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yep.
That's what it is. So
100%.
it's not a book that, if you read it, it's magic or anything like that, but it's a method where I coach people through, take this step, do this homework, do this reflection, think about these losses, name the emotions that you felt when this loss happened. What else, and then I help them refine it. They come back a week later and um, um, they may have named 2 emotions, and I suspect there's probably more there. And so I said, look, what else is there? And
Yeah.
again, I don't tell them what their emotions are. I say, what else is there? And I might say,
Deeper.
when you felt this, did you also feel this?
Mm.
Well, yeah. I said, well, why didn't you put that on your list? Why did you write that down? So the more extensive, what I have found is the more extensive they can name their feelings from their unresolved emotions from the past, the
Mhm.
deeper they can go, the more profound the recovery. That has proven true over and over again.
That is beautiful, and it makes so much sense along with healing anything in your heart. I think a lot of us kind of focus on, okay, well, I have to be logical about this. But the problem with the logical brain is it will believe what you tell it, and your heart is over here feeling what it needs to feel and what it needs to get out. And rather than running away from it, it doesn't mean that you're met instantly face to face with it, because, like you said, there's those little steps. It's you gotta dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, keep digging a little bit. Um, and I'm pretty sure that there's been so many people that have learned through this grief process that have worked with you that have been able to use this throughout the rest of their life when they go through another situation, another
Yeah.
hardship,
Yeah.
because grief could maybe even still have to do with somebody who may still even be around.
Yes.
When
Sure.
I left my relationship, it was, I mean, 8 years, 16 to 24. It
Yep.
felt like that person was gone, but
Yeah.
they were still here. So
Yep.
it was kind of confusing. And I want everybody to hear that too, to know that it doesn't matter whether somebody or something is still physically here or not. You can grieve so many things in so many ways.
Hmm.
And there's going to be a process no matter what. Things are supposed to be easy when they're worth it. um, but the joy coming out of that and having you sit here and tell me, David, how they maybe have less headaches and they sleep a little bit better, and now they know how to guide themselves through other emotions because they've looked at their heart and they can catch themselves in those moments and be like, oh, I remember working through this process with David, and this is something that I promised myself I was going to change, or I wasn't going to tell myself, or now I can not only recognize this emotion, but I know how to work through it.
Hmm.
Because that's a whole nother step in itself. You
Yeah.
recognize it, and then you actually have to take action. And that's not easy to do. So we are going to take our third break here, real quick, David, and then we're going to come back on and talk more about how people can get in touch with you, um, and other situations of grief that maybe have to do with not just death. So everybody stay with us. We'll be right back. We are talking with David Brinker with the, what is it, the
It's
program,
called
remind me?
the grief recovery method. That is the process I use.
Okay, grief recovery method.
Hmm.
And if you're still listening, then stay with us. We will be right back.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And we're back with David Brinker and oh my gosh, the grief recovery method. And my question for you is, um, well, I guess just maybe have like, what's your perspective on the whole grief itself aside from death?
Well, uh, we are we are a death denying culture, and all of us experience loss all of our lives, but most of us have never learned how to recover from the emotional pain, the unresolved or incomplete emotions of our losses. We don't know what to do with them. They hurt, and so we avoid pain. Um, so that's just my general view now, having
Yeah.
been involved in this, that's kind of part of the human condition. But the hopeful thing is there is recovery. And no matter what kind of program people want to get involved in, make sure there is a recovery process that includes action steps. If it
Mm,
doesn't have that, then I'm not sure how complete the program really is going to be for that person. So
mm,
no matter what, I want to admit that maybe not everybody is going to be interested in the grief recovery method. I
right.
think everybody has losses, but not everybody may want to engage in this. But whatever they engage in, it ought to have an outcome based process that has discernible steps that hopefully have a track record. That would
Mm.
be my hope for everybody.
Yeah, and that's very good advice. I mean, why are you going into something if you don't know the end game? So, I think that goes along with so many things in life. And Kevin, welcome back. Do you have any questions before we run out of time? Our last 10 minutes?
And by the way, thank you for taking over for me,
Of
Brichelle.
course.
That was
I
I
hope you
had
did
to do that.
okay.
Yeah, everything's fine. But David, I did want to ask you because there is somebody in our audience, and actually more than one, who is going through grief and has not um, figured out a way to get out of it. How do they get a hold of you if what you have talked about resonates with them?
Well, there's several ways. The first and probably the most direct is a phone number. Can I give it on the air?
Yeah,
That's up to you,
that's
young man. You
totally
might.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can put it
Okay.
in the chat.
So I will tell you this is a Google business number. And so it goes to a recording, but I listen to it regularly and I get back to people, but it's not my personal number. 717-814-9704, 717-814-9704, and they will be able to leave a message and I will get back to them.
Okay, let's wait just a couple of seconds because somebody in our
There we
audience
go.
is fumbling with she isn't she just brilliant?
That is
And so
great.
so if you're watching this, the number's on the screen. If you are listening to this an hour later and you are fumbling for a piece of paper and a pen, we'll wait. No, wait, okay, we can't have dead air. But what we'll do is it's
Another
7.
way is by email if you'd like me to give that.
You please do.
So it is David dot Brinker, Brinker dot GRMS at gmail.com. David.Brinker.GRMS, that stands for Grief Recovery Method Specialist, at gmail.com. And I will that's my business grief recovery email, and I will get back to people within short time on that. If they want to do a Google search, they can Google and search compassionate grief recovery method. And if that doesn't get them to me, they could add the location, which is York County. Compassionate grief recovery method, York County. And I have a website, and they would see all sorts of information. There's free material on that website, points of how to contact me, even how to schedule things on that website.
And what is that website, David?
I'll do it again. They can search compassionate
Oh, compassionate. Okay.
grief recovery method, York County. That would just be a Google search, and that usually will give them a hit.
Okay. Perfect.
And by the way, again, we're talking with David Brinker. If you are or you know somebody, and we all know somebody who is dealing with grief in a substantial way, and they are not able to get out of it themselves, and you haven't found a resource, voila, that's why we do this, because we are giving you a really good resource for you to be able to help them or help yourself to get out of grief. Because I want to say this before we go. Everyone that has passed, including your dogs and your cats and everybody that you know, what they want for you while you're still here is to live the best life that you can. They're in a much better place than we are. And they do not want you to feel the grief and to feel the negativity of that, because you're only here for a short period of time and they want you to be happy and to be loving and to have a great life. And so if you need the help to get through that, David Brinker is a great resource for you.
Thank you. If I could make a final kind of closing comment, it's never too late to heal your heart. It's never too late to heal your heart.
Nope.
Beautiful.
That's absolutely true. And your loved ones, I've worked in this field for a long time, and I've talked to psychic mediums and a lot of people that have talked to people on the other side. Whether you believe in that or not it's immaterial. But everyone will always tell me that they want you to be happy. They want you to live your life to the best that you can while you're here. And it's so important that you take the initiative and learn how to take care of it. And by the way, John Verico is listening, and David is very generous with helping you heal your heart by giving you his own. Now, is that a portable heart that you have, or what is that?
That's my friend John, who is posting that. I don't know how he did that.
We love John.
John is a brilliant dude, man.
I see him about once a month.
Yes, well, and John, I want you on Unscripted Politics, by the way. I want you to be a guest on Unscripted Politics, and because I think you would be good there, and we'll talk later about that. But David Brinker, give us your information one more time.
Okay, my phone number is 717-814-9704. Email david.brinker.grms@gmail.com. And if you'd like to do a Google search, you'll find my web information at Compassionate Grief Recovery Method, York County.
Perfect.
And but David, Rochelle did a marvelous job while I was away, didn't she?
Yeah, I was glad to have her and you.
Well,
yeah,
you were more glad to have her, right?
It's been a very fun, positive, exciting experience for me.
Well, I'm glad Rochelle was here for you, because she's just a dynamite individual. And Rochelle, I did mention about Dana and the problems and what she's going through, and it's profound. So get the help you need, whoever you are, and live your life like there's no tomorrow, because there may not be, and
responsibly though.
Everybody tells me. So anyway, but David, it's been great fun having you here, and thank you for doing what you're doing and helping people, because it can shut you down, it can put you down. There are people that can't get out of bed in the morning because they're feeling so badly, and that's a waste of life.
Yep, I've helped people across the United States, and I've had inquiries from overseas as well. And I will mention, I am not the only grief recovery method specialist. So if they want to work with a woman, they can go to the Grief Recovery Institute online, on a Google search, Grief Recovery Institute, and there they will find people around the world.
And that's how you found them and did the course and got over your own grief and went through the process, and that you were so impressed by it that you wanted to be part of it.
That's often the story. Yes, it is.
Beautiful.
That's just awesome. Again, we've got 1 minute left. Rochelle, anything you'd like to add?
I just want to say thank you so much for this conversation, David. I even myself learned a lot through you about how you put things in perspective when it comes to any sort of grief, or the layers that you have to deal with going through it, and that you're just understanding. You're here to know that it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. You can go through the recovery process from your grief. And my favorite thing you've said this whole time while we've been on here is, it is never too late to heal your heart.
That's right.
That's another t-shirt we're going to have to make. And just thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. And by the way, you have got a good heart, so keep it in your body, okay? Don't give it away.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And give David Brinker a call. You can Google him and you'll find him. He's everywhere. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
And have an awesome day, because like we have to. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin